Hello there. I'm Kiyosaroni Beatmaker, and welcome to Lounge Ronin. And on today's episode, we are going to be talking about a mystery rocket that lands on the moon and the Chinese rover find a cube on the moon. Now, both of these stories, actually, they happened, I think, last year and the year before last. I'm not exactly sure, but I do have the articles, so we'll have the dates. But yeah, we're gonna keep it nice and light and easy. I've been thinking about this for a minute, and actually, to be quite honest, I am essentially kind of doing a redo of old streams that I did in the past when my internet wasn't the best, but I was persistent and stubborn. But I was like, let me jump back onto to those old streams, and I wanted to gather more thoughts about the underwater pyramid and my little fun theory. If you want to know more about that, you should check out the first episode of Lounge Ronin, where I talk about pyramids in China and in what's it called? China. What was the other place? And Greece. Yeah, China and Greece. So I highly recommend you check those episodes out. But yeah, today's episode. So we're going to first talk about the mysterious rocket that landed on the moon. And I have an article up about it that we can read. I find this to be such a funny story. Mainly because you would figure something like this happens and it would be like worldwide news. Like it would be on all the airwaves, but it wasn't. It was briefly mentioned. I saw it on Twitter briefly, and that was it. So, and when I saw this, I was laughing because it made me think like, like I was saying in a previous stream, like how the veil continues to get lifted, and sometimes the veil gets lifted so much that they can't even do anything about it other than just sweep it under the rug. And you're seeing that right now in the current state of affairs in the world. And it's like you kind of have to ask yourself, like, why is it that brief stories will come out and they'll quickly suppress it? Well, maybe because there's something there. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Sorry, I'm just posting that I'm live on the Instagram. Where is it? There we All right. Well, what is this? Oh, well, at least the volume is off. Okay. Where is it? I apologize. I'm going to have to redo this. All right. Let's go to history. Until I find this, does anybody have any special plans for the New Year's? I know that's fast approaching. Does anyone have any plans or New Year's resolutions? Wait, is it actually there? Yeah, okay. Here we go. All right. Now this happened in June 30th, 2022. So it happened this year. And I find this to be a very interesting and entertaining story. And looking to hear everybody's thoughts. It was written by Natalia Nisa Alund. All right. Ooh, hold on. Here we go. Let's watch this 30-second clip.
We're all sick of COVID-19, but it was.
Hold on. Apologize for the ad. Okay. Oh, wait, no. I was hoping it was going to play the video, but oh well. All right, here we go. A mystery rocket body that crashed into the moon is baffling NASA. According to NASA, astronomers discovered a rocket body heading toward a lunar collision late last year. So how funny is that? So they knew about it. They knew about the rocket heading towards the moon since late last year. Isn't that funny? They knew about it, but they didn't say anything about it. The impact occurred on March 4th. NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter spotted the crash site on the moon's surface shortly after. New images shared on June 24th by NASA show a snapshot of the site. So, here's something that I find really interesting. So, they knew about it since late last year. It impacts on March, but they don't say anything until June. Isn't that weird? You would think, personally here, rational Ronan, you would think that this would be like some big news to, put out there so that, even amateur astronomers could, keep an eye on this thing. All right, the crash landing left behind a double crater, more than 90 feet wide, the Space Administration reported in a news release. According to the Space Administration, two large masses on each end of the rocket may have caused the craters. but it noted that the impact marks are highly unusual. Typically a spent rocket mass is concentrated at the motor end. The rest of the rocket stage mainly consists of an empty fuel tank, NASA said in the news release. Since the origin of the rocket body remains uncertain, the double nature of the crater may indicate its identity, NASA wrote. Well, isn't that a little weird? You know what I mean? I think that's kind of like, so they don't know what it is? They've been following this thing since late last year. They knew about it, but they don't even know who it came from. Isn't that a little weird, a little funny? That's just my personal opinion. I see we have someone in the live stream. Be so kindly to hit that like button. And thank you for stopping by. I greatly appreciate it. And they know it's an empty fuel tank. Isn't that kind of weird? See, there was another article I read about this a while ago, and I couldn't find it, but I don't know if this article talks about it, but I'm going to say it now because it just adds to the level of mystery. But where was it? In the other article that I read, it stated that every space agency on Earth did not take credit for this rocket. So this is what I mean, right? So the origin, right? So no one takes credit for the rocket. Okay. Here's the impact. All right. It says since the origin of the rocket body remains uncertain, the double nature of the crater may indicate its identity. But regardless of the identity, how is it that they've known about it since late last year and they don't know the identity of it? Isn't that weird? Just use your critical thinking skills. I know that's frowned upon nowadays, but just for a moment, just use your critical thinking skills and just think about that. They knew about the rocket since late last year. They don't know its origin, but they know it's a fuel tank. All right, so below the picture, and here's, you have the arrow, and here's where the impact is. According to NASA, astronomers discovered a rocket body heading toward lunar collision late last year. Impact occurred around March 4th, 2022. NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter spotted the crash site on the moon's surface shortly after. So here's Twitter, NASA Moon. Hilarious. It's called NASA Moon. Let's see if we can play it. All right. That was very short and pointless. But thanks, NASA. That's you're doing your part, because it's kind of what you guys do. No shade. No shade. Let's see what it says here on NASA 360. After a rocket body impacted the moon last year, NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter was able to snap a surprising view of the impact site. Unexpectedly, the crater is actually two craters and indicate that the rocket body had large masses on each end. Okay, so... All right, ladies and gentlemen, one more time, put on your critical thinking skills, right? That's big. That's a big rocket. Now, here's the other question in my mind. Now, we know that SpaceX has been working on rockets that go, uh, they land vertical and, they go up and down and they land on their own. So, but it impact. They said it impact. So in my mind, that means that it crashed, or would saying it landed be too much of a red flag for everyone if NASA came out and said, we've been following this rocket for a year and a half, and it landed on the moon. We don't know where it came from. Here's a picture of the landing site. Granted, there's no rocket there, but it was there. And like I said, use your critical thinking skills just for a little bit, and then go back to La La Land if you like that. But okay, so here's the best part. All the way at the bottom, no space exploring nations have claimed responsibility for the projectile. Now they're calling it a projectile. First, they call it a fuel tank. First, it's a rocket. Then it's a fuel tank. Now it's a projectile, which leaves scientists baffled about who's behind its launch, the Houston Chronicle reported. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. Just like I said, let's put back on our critical thinking skills for a moment here. All right. NASA knew about this rocket for this rocket, fuel tank, projectile. It has 3 different pronouns apparently. So they knew about it for a year and a half. It lands, right? Or it impacts, whatever they want to call it. Okay, here it is. Here's where the arrow is, and here's the spot. And nobody takes credit for it. Okay, India has a space agency. China, the U.S., Russia. You have the private companies who do their space things. Bezos and Elon, but and what's that, Virgin guy, whatever. So none of them are taking credit for it. Or Israel. Yeah, Israel has a space agency as well. So please tell me, in this article, which is hilarious, they literally call it 3 different things. Now, I don't know, I don't know. They're just trying to kind of confuse you by telling you it's a rocket, then it's a fuel tank, and then it's a projectile. But it leaves that kind of crater. Because then if it's a projectile, all right, where's the evidence of whatever landed there or impact? See, that's the funny thing about it, right? So they show you the pictures, but they don't show you what landed there. What was it? And when I typed it in, they all the articles, the same thing. No, this adds to a theme that I see going on, where really baffling stories like this occur, and then you go online and there's no updates to it. None. And I'm gonna do an episode about one of my favorite little mysteries. That I every now and then I'll go online and I will look to see if there's been any updates. And it's essentially, and please, by all means, go on there and see if you can find any updates. But I'll bring it up because it just kind of connects to just how weird things like this happen. And then boom, Like they'll put out, an article. Everyone will kind of put out the same article and nothing else. This happened in June, and I type in the same thing and there's been no updates. To me, that's kind of weird. So the story that I'm gonna bring it up briefly because it kind of ties into how, like I was saying. So this happened, man, I don't know, 2017, 2018. A guy was skiing in he was skiing in upstate New York, and the next thing you know, he disappears. And he disappears for a minute. They don't know where he was gone. He was just gone. And the next thing you know, the next thing you know, he appears in California. He appears in California wearing, because I remember this, like reading the article, because I'm like, this is crazy. He was wearing his ski clothes. He had no cell phone, but he had a haircut and money and no wallet. Crazy. It was a big story for like a minute. It was a big story for a hot minute. And every now and then I look up information, no updates. No updates on the guy's condition, what happened, nothing. And I think it kind of ties into the whole missing 411 cases and investigations, but that's a whole nother thing. But the reason why I kind of brought it up, because it's just like this story. I type in the same thing, no new information, nothing. But that's not even the weird part. To me, the weirdest part about it is the fact that they talk about the impact, but they don't provide you any contextual evidence as to, well, what did it look like? Because I mean, if they knew about it late since late last year of 2020 of 2021, and they knew where it was going to hit, that means that they have either video or photographic evidence of this object. You can't, there's no denying that, unless, Wonder Woman's jet, just like, got hit by an asteroid and accidentally crashed on the moon. I mean, come on now. Like, we have to be kind of like, like I said, use your critical thinking skills here. And, what does that mean? What are the implications? And like I was saying, we have to ask ourselves, why won't they provide any indications as to any updates on this story? Why is that? Listen, I just think that's kind of weird. I think it's really interesting. If anyone out there finds this story as interesting and as baffling as I do, and you got time, please feel free to look more into it. But all I'm saying is, I'm convinced that they have to have, some visualization of whatever this projectile, fuel tank, rocket. I mean, here, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the three different pronouns this object had. First, they called it a rocket. Okay. And it's a rocket that doesn't belong to any space agency, and they don't know where it came from. okay. Then they say it's a fuel tank. But we know that when it comes to human rockets, they all fall down back onto the surface. I think they're recovered. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But so obviously it wasn't one of ours because they would have just said, "Hey, yeah, it was one of ours," but it wasn't. And then it's a projectile. Then we know that projectiles are meant to be fired. So then who fired it? And they knew about it for a year and a half. And then it makes, a 90-foot wide crater. I mean, and that's very interesting. But then, if you look at the picture, okay, but if it was a projectile, right? Wouldn't there be debris? And same with the fuel tank. 90 foot? A 90-foot crater? That's that's a part of my French. That's a big ass fuel tank we're talking about. I mean, that's a little ridiculous. So, please, someone help me understand. If you have, any, perspective on what this could be. I don't know. I just think it's a weird one, and like so many other interesting things. Like I remember I was doing research for a class, and my assignment I chose drones, and I was researching military drones and their capabilities. And I mean, they had drones with tasers all the way back in like 2017, 2015. But anyways, it I gotta be careful with what I say. But essentially, I was looking up a certain type of drone, and every time I looked it up, it would tell me this doesn't exist. This doesn't exist. And I'm like, but here's the name of it. Here's the company. Why can I not look into this? Why they're saying it doesn't exist? And then I heard a independent investigative journalist talk about the very same drone I was researching being used in a recent war that's currently going on, or SMG, depending on your political viewpoints. But anyways, I was bringing that up because there's obviously a reason why it was deleted. But we're not going to get into all of that. This is not this place to be talking about that. But anyways, it just ties into what I find very interesting is how they will, we know that they're, kind of deleting aspects of the internet. But it's also just interesting when stories like this, which you would think would be national news, like, everyone would be talking about it. No one talked about it. It just poof, just another day. Another day, just another mysterious, object. So, I don't know. I just find that to be a very interesting story. And like I said, when I went back in to look up anything about it, no new information, just the same stories talking about this. And isn't that weird, right? And like I said, if it was a fuel tank, right? That's a big fuel tank. If it was a projectile, that's a big impact. And you look at the picture and there's nothing. No debris, no object. So then what was it? And regardless of your your galactic views, or your planetary views. This is just a baffling one, and I think it's just so funny how it happened. And I remember when I found out about this in June, and I remember telling people about it, and they're like, "Wait, what?" And I was like, "Yeah, look it up. This is crazy." I was telling them the story, and they're like, "This is so weird, huh?" And that was it. Like, no, like, no, nothing, no interest or like no real, like, what do you mean a rocket that a object, lands on the moon that they knew about for a year and a half, but no space agencies are taking credit for it? But we hear about the secret space program, and that hacker in the 90s who hacked a military base and found a file with a list of military personnel that were on duty off planet. So, I've seen some very interesting photos of what looked like military spacecrafts. So I in space. So I don't know. It's just it's a weird one, because we know about, we now have Space Force, whatever that's about. We know about that they have a secret space program anyways. We know that the military is always like, I forgot how many years, like 10 or 15, probably like 50 years ahead of us. So, and it's like, it's just a weird mystery. And it's just so weird to me how these things happen, but then they don't tell you about it. There's no updates. It's just this happens, and I haven't. The follow up story is just as bizarre and weird as this one. And again, no updates, no nothing. And I every day, it keeps on getting weird, or every day it either keeps on just getting weirder, or the veil gets lifted, and here we are witnessing more craziness, more wildness, and catch my my Monday Mindset Rants live stream I did on Monday, and I just talk about how like people are kind of just like losing what it means to be human. But not only that, just like right now with this, like losing their curiosity. Because when I would tell people about this, they would look at me like, "Whoa, that's crazy," and then they're just like, "Okay," and I'm over here like, "Don't you think like?" Sometimes I just want to be like, why are we not? We should all be asking and inquiring, why are we not getting an update on this story? And just like this story that I'm gonna read to you guys. Look at this. This is by Christopher Brito, and this happened January 10th, 2022. China finds explanation for mystery hut spotted on the moon. Okay, let's see what they have to say. China has discovered the explanation for the mystery hut its rover spotted on the moon last year as the lunar rover made a closer approach. A log of its activities revealed apologies. The object was actually just a rock on a crater rim. Look at that. Because I remember when I first read about this, and they're like, "Oh, they found a cube." They found a cube on the moon and all this wild stuff, and I was like, "All right, guys, let's see what this is all about." But I'm glad we got an update on it, which I think is kind of funny, right? Because, and I just notice I got a new subscriber. To shout out to Tellet from Connecticut. Much love. Thank you for the subscription. I hope you are having a very lovely night, and I hope you have a wonderful new year. But like I was saying, I think it's kind of funny, right? The story we were just reading, a mysterious object lands on the moon. None of our space agencies on the planet take credit for it. Excuse me. And then you have this story here where, China's rover says it finds like a hut, and now they're saying that, oh, it was just a rock. And I think it's just kind of so funny. And they're saying upon closer view, the rock looked like a jade rabbit holding carrots, the Post said. That's very specific. That's interesting. I don't know why that's so specific. The moon's surface is 38 million square kilometers of rocks, so it would have been astronomically exceptional for it to be anything else. Interesting. So they say it is just a rock. But for some odd reason, it looked like a jade rabbit holding carrots. Interesting. So I remember seeing this. This is what we first saw. And they're like, oh, look at this. It's like a cube. And now they're like, oh, and upon further inspection, it's just a rock. Which is, it's kind of lackluster. But I think it's just kind of funny because it ties to, it kind of ties into what I was saying about how you go to the other story, and a mystery rocket body, it crashed into the moon. Okay, so it crashed into the moon. All right, so we're gonna go back to this story because obviously the other one is not that interesting as this. So I apologize, but I do have another story I'm going to bring up because I think it's kind of interesting, and it kind of made me think of the China rover incident because they called it a cube. But real quick, I have seen photos of structures on the moon where you can argue me to the moon about, well, that's not true. There are probably rock formations, this, that. And I'd be like, hey, you know what? You make a very good point. And then I would also be like, well, why is it that, in some of these photos, there are areas that are completely edited out. Like you've seen photos where they put like they blur an area out, kind of like if there was like if it was like a explicit image or a death, they'll kind of blur out where the blood is or what have you, and it was like one of those, but it's like on the moon. I found that to be very peculiar and very, very interesting. I don't really know what that means, but it's just kind of, in my mind, it just kind of adds to the baffling story of the moon, and just like just all of it. It's just so baffling to me. But even like this, like I said, when I went in and looked up, there were no updates to it. But you know what? Just for fun, hold on. I'm gonna look up the story about the guy. Here we go. I'll pull this up. 1 year later. Oh, wow. Okay, so this happened in 2018, 2016. All right, so I'm going to pull up the story about the guy who was skiing in California, and then skiing in New York, and then winds up in California. Just so we can read that a little bit. I'm gonna try to pull up also the Daily Mail had a pretty interesting article about it. That's where I first read about it. Think of them what you will, but every now and then they put out some really interesting stuff. So yeah, let's do it. Okay, so 1 year later, missing white-faced skier story remains a mystery. All right, so this was updated on February 12th. All right, so here's the man. Now look, he's wearing his skiing clothes, and he got a haircut. So Konstantinos Danny Philpedius, I'm assuming he's Italian, a 49-year-old firefighter from Toronto, or maybe I'm wrong, is pictured in Sacramento, California, February 13th, 2018, wearing the same clothes worn while skiing at Whiteface Mountain when he went missing February 7th, provided by state police. Okay, so, you know, so that's him, firefighter. That it? There he is. And now, see, that's the outfit that we saw in the first photo. Helmet on, everything, good to go. All right. 1 year later, Danny was standing in Sacramento, California, wondering where exactly he was 1 year ago. Okay. Unknown to him, the 50-year-old Toronto firefighter was the subject of a massive manhunt on the other side of the country. Searchers on and around Whiteface Mountain were searching for the Toronto firefighter who vanished February 7th while on an annual ski trip with coworkers. The hunt included at least 6 government agencies, two ski patrols, and several local volunteers. More than 135 people spent a combined 7,000 hours on the rugged mountain in varying winter weather conditions, officials said Monday. Helicopters and search dogs were also called in. A truck driver had dropped Danny off in Sacramento, and Danny couldn't remember how he had gotten there or who he was. Wait a minute. Hold the phone. I do not remember this part of the story. Danny's story captured international attention, but a year later, there's still no clear answer to what exactly happened to him, or the mystery person who. Okay. I gotta find the Daily Mail article, because actually, surprisingly, this is actually a little misleading. I'm gonna be actually kind of honest with you. They're leaving out the most crucial part about it. Okay, hold on. Or the mystery person that drove him. So here's the thing. In the Daily Mail article, and I think if you were to look up this ski resort, it's in the mountains. All right. Danny declined an interview request last week. He is happy with his progress and wants to continue to move forward. The president, a professional fire. He has since returned to work. So wait a minute, but he forgot who he was. Here we go. Here's interesting. Over the last year, Danny spoke publicly only once, telling the Canadian press, and we got some interesting stuff I could say about Canada. In August, he thinks it all began when he took a wrong turn on a solo trip down to his car. He wanted to grab his phone to take photos of his trip. When he still hadn't returned to the ski lodge by 4 p.m., his friends began looking for him. Investigators later determined that Phillips likely fell near a children's ski slope and ended up on a hub used for children's programming that would have been closed at the time, according to Canadian press. 3 sets of tests and multiple visits to neurologists and neuropsychologists in Toronto confirmed that he suffered some sort of head injury. Okay. Right. Okay. At some point, he came across a truck driver. State police have never been able to determine who the man was or where the truck was coming from. 6 days later, he turned up in California. He had somehow gotten a haircut and bought a new iPhone. Okay. We're going to put on our critical thinking skills here, ladies and gentlemen. All right. How is it he's in the mountains skiing? Now, listen, I've only done cross-country skiing, and that was in 4th grade for a PE class. Yeah, I was bougie back in the day. But to do the kind of skiing that, he was, you saw his, the weather that he was, the weather clothing that he was wearing for the type of skiing that he's doing, that's not done like, on, hiking trails. That's done up in the mountains. So how did he knock his head and then somehow manage to, in the mountains, mind you, because I'm gonna see if I can find that Daily Mail article, because they actually do the numbers. They do the numbers, and they actually use their critical thinking skills. And here's the whole point. The whole point is, how is it that if you're skiing in the mountains and you then somehow land, like, how does he meet just, like, think about it. It just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't, because how would anybody just, I don't know if anyone's been skiing up in New York. I have not, like I said, but I know that if you were to fall off a kid slope, which it's already kind of weird, right? Because if he's obviously a professional, or not a professional, but he's obviously not an amateur. So it's just kind of weird to me that he would fall off a kid slope and bang his head in the mountains. But I'm gonna pull up the Daily Mail, because they do the numbers. See, all he said. Okay, interesting. So, this is where we're gonna get into a little fun now. All right. All he knew is he was a passenger in a big truck. Up here in the bulletins, like I said, a new haircut, a new phone. This kind of ties into some of the missing 411, but a big style truck and slept a lot. It just doesn't make any sense. Who gave him a haircut? It's unclear how he managed to get to California. It was all like he flew. His passport was left behind. Yeah, because he was 2,900 miles away. And he was found at the Sacramento International Airport. But no memory. See, and here's the thing, right? A passenger, and he puts it in quotations. So that should then kind of like, put on your tinfoil hat for a minute. That should kind of should spark you like, huh? What? A big style truck. Because if you have ever read any of the Bible, and if you've read any of the of Enoch stuff, he talks about, getting picked up in a spacecraft, but that's a whole nother thing. But just think about this, right? We had gone. Okay, that's him and his wife. Okay, yeah, Whiteface Mountain. All right, you know what? Now my investigation hat has turned on. We're gonna look up this place. Whiteface Mountain. Oh, come on, man. Look at this. Look at this place. I'm gonna pull it up for you guys. Talk about fancy. And I just looked at a photo. I mean, this place is up in the mountains of New York. So, and I've been to upstate New York, but I haven't been to upstate New York. So I just find this to be really interesting. So this is the story of a girl who cried a river and drowned the whole world. Okay. All right. So, all right, the mountain. Let's see. Look at this place. It's in the mountains. All right, it's in the mountains. Look at this. It's the mountains. Mountains. This is the ski trail. Okay, hold on. Let's actually look at the trail map. Oh, come on, ladies and gentlemen. Please, look at this. Look at this. So you're gonna tell me, right? You're gonna tell me this. You're gonna tell me that. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can find where the kids are skiing. I mean, it's got to be lower down here. But here, look at the place, right? So You got lodges here, down here, near the bottom. Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, you know, I only skied cross country in fourth grade, so my knowledge is, you know, it's fourth grade. But if you look at the map, take off your tinfoil hat for a quick second, pop on that critical thinking skills. All right, look at this. There's only one road in and out, all the way at the bottom left corner. You see the road. And then before that, there's a river that cuts right across. So, and this is what I mean, ladies and gentlemen, by putting on your critical thinking skills. All right, how is it that he somehow falls, so he's on his way back to his car? That doesn't make any sense, because and he left his passport at the lodge, but he left his phone in the car. Keep in mind, like, I don't know much about how, you know, resorts work, these kind of resorts. You know, I was bougie in fourth grade, but I'm economically reasonable now. But all I'm saying is, it's just a little weird that he, wherever the kids section is, and I'm assuming it's on the lower section, you know, closer to the lodges. So he bumps his head and then somehow manages to get across the river into the parking lot. You got parking lot 1 here, and then you got parking lot 2 and 3 on the far left corner. So, and if he got picked up by a quote unquote big style truck, that would imply that he somehow made his way to parking lot 1 all the way in the far left corner. Now, this is why I wanted to go back to the Daily Mail article, because they actually kind of give you a little more better context. And also, I'm like, wait a minute, let me look up this place, because they're saying he got picked up by a truck. I'm like, well, if he's, like I said, you know, most ski resorts of this type of caliber are up in the mountains. And as evidence has been presented to us, that it's up in the freaking mountains. So, to me, I look at this and I'm like, okay, a big style truck, where? Now remember, like one, let's just say he gets, let's just say if a big rig truck was in the area and saw him in New York and saw him, we all know they would just be like, hey sir, you look like are you okay? Let me bring you to the office. Let me call 911. You look like you might be injured. He's in the mountains. You're gonna tell me he gets he winds up near a truck driver and they're like, hey, get in, I'm heading to California. Like I said, I hope your critical thinking hat is on nice and tight, because think about that. None of that makes any sense. It doesn't make a lick of sense. I mean, if you have any ideas, please leave it in the comments. Give me a comment what you think. And while you're at it, hit the like button. But I just think that's kind of weird. So, you know, you see the place, it's, you know, it's in the mountains. It doesn't make any sense to me. Let's see, maybe look at this, look at the big mountain. Look at that. But yeah, I mean, this is upstate New York. I mean, this is Oh, let's see where the lodging is. Maybe they have any pictures of where the lodging is. No, not necessarily. Well, these are a really nice place. Maybe when I get bougie again, I'll make my way over here. See if I get picked up by the big style truck, aka UFO. But what I mean by UFO, because it actually kind of ties into when I was talking about the missing 411, is that in the missing 411, what tends to happen, right, is people go missing, and we're talking from all different ages and certain walks of life, and they go missing and they're gone. There's nothing. And it only happens in national parks, and the park rangers do not allow anybody to investigate these disappearances. And sometimes they do recover bodies or clothing. Well, actually, I shouldn't say bodies, more like body parts. That tends to be a thing that happens. Um, we're supposed to believe that he somehow got picked up by a big style truck, and they don't know who did it. But well, obviously not, because he had no memory. And it's already weird, right? He had no memory of how he got there, but he or who he was, but he's back to being a firefighter, and he won't take interviews. And like, that's weird. This is a weird story, but like I said about the missing 411, I think you can watch the the um, the documentary on YouTube. Let me see if it is on YouTube. But it's I've seen the trailer. It's fascinating. Um, and the guy who it was actually a series of books first, and it was written by a um retired investigative journalist, which I think is no, he was a uh, retired detective. Um, I forgot how he stumbled onto this, but I've seen um, several interviews with him. Yeah, it's on. Yep, it's on. Bibbidi bibbidi boo. Yeah, I'll play the. I'll put the trailer in for you guys to check it out. It is on YouTube. It is free with ads. But if some of y'all out there are bougie, y'all probably got it without. And I'll play the trailer really quick for you guys. So you can check it out. Maybe if I get big enough cojones, I'll watch it and then we can do a little deep dive into it. Because I'll be honest, it creeps me out. Because, like, I think I was saying about, like, they would find body parts.
Mysterious disappearances.
Tom, you around?
When Mr. simply vanished.
Generally speaking, hunters are very experienced and knowledgeable outdoorsmen. And so when one vanishes, you know something unusual has occurred.
As a hunter, you're like, I'm fine, I'm armed, I'm safe. There's no reason for why these people go missing.
They never found anything. Not the walkie-talkie, not his gun, nothing.
Obviously, an animal didn't get to him because there'd be a big scatter. It'd be easy to find.
The FBI doesn't investigate missing adults. So then why would the FBI arrive on Tom Messick's case?
When you see hundreds of victims scattered throughout our national forests and national parks, you have to question the reality of it.
So he could have made fire. He had a gun, he could have signaled help. What happened to him?
I'd like to know, but I don't think we ever will.
Whatever it is big, and we started recording them.
Frequencies go way above and way below the abilities of humans.
I look, I'm thinking, what is this thing in the trees? It went from like tree to tree, and then it disappeared.
Is it possible for an 82-year-old man to simply vanish while sitting alone in the woods? Can a man with severe hypothermia hike 6 miles through snow with no shoes? This is one of those recurring phenomena. It's going to happen again. It's just a matter of time.
None of it makes any sense.